let's have a conversation. What's going on, everybody? How you doing? How is everybody doing? I hope that you are having a good day. It is 12:37 p.m. Eastern Time in New York City, where I'm at. I started this a little bit late, but only because for some reason I have different issues with my streaming service where I can't hear the sound on my end. So I had to just do a test and make sure that the sound was working, which I think it is. You can let me know if it's working or if it's not. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about this guest that I have. And this is not a live guest, just to let all of you know. This is not a live guest. But this is a guest that I interviewed last week. And his name is Tom Kelly, who you're going to see me introduce when I play the actual video for you guys. Okay. Tom Kelly, to tell you a little bit about him. I met him on the Good Morning America show, I believe, in 2019. He was the warm-up comedian for that show, the Good Morning America show with Michael Strahan and everything. And as I told him, when I looked at him, I was like, I don't know. I don't really think this guy's going to be that funny. He told a couple of jokes. I'm like, I don't really know if these jokes are funny. But then he was really great with the engagement of the crowd, and everybody thought he was funny by the end of the night. And I've seen him a couple of more times since then at a couple of different shows, most recently at Rachel Ray. And I hadn't seen him for a while. And then I saw him at Rachel Ray, and I found out from him, I don't think in the interview, but like offline, that was because the pandemic kind of railroaded his warm-up comedian career, and now he's just recently coming back to that. So when I saw him at Rachel Ray, he had jokes for me. He saw me, and you guys remember my outfit in the red shirt and the black suspenders and the red hat and all of that. And he had me stand up a couple of times, and he was like, "You look like Steve Urkel." Dressed for a job interview. And then another time there was this other guy that was sitting there with his mom, and he told that guy to stand up, and he told me to stand up, and he was like pointing at me, and he was like, "Mom, this is what your son would look like if he had good credit." And yeah, the first time I saw him, I was wearing like a red shirt also, and he was like, "Are you here for a Christmas episode?" And then also there was these ladies that were all dressed in red, and they were all there as a group. And he said, "Go stand over there by those ladies. Y'all look like the family of Family Feud on the Christmas edition." And I just find that really fun because I'm not like a star that comes to the shows. I'm just an audience member. So there's times when I don't even really get acknowledged by whoever's there, or there's times when I might not even make it on the camera or anything like that. So I'm just there for the experience. But I appreciated how Tom makes you feel like a part of the show. Now, about the interview itself, I reached out to him because I was like, "Hey, Tom, I would really like to actually have an interview with you and maybe get in the mind a little bit of what it's like to do your particular profession," and ask him about a couple of hot topic questions, which I ended up asking him about. He did talk a little bit about Kanye. He talked about Dave Chappelle. He talked about a lot of different things. I wouldn't say that this interview was super structured. I usually have, as I did with him, my notepad where I had a lot of different questions that I wanted to ask, but I've kind of learned as an interviewer to go with the flow a lot more than I used to. So I hope that you guys enjoy this interview that I'm about to play for y'all. And I'm going to be here watching it alongside with you and commenting as we go along. So I once again, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Super Chats is active. Memberships are active. And also, if you want to bless the Cash App, that's there as well. It helps keep me going. Trust me, I still haven't received a YouTube paycheck. Shout out to YouTube. Without further ado, here is my interview with Mr. Tom Kelly. My next episode of Let's Have a Conversation. I have somebody that I met a few years ago. He's hilarious. His name is Tom Kelly. He's a comedian, TV personality, and known for warming up the show on Good Morning America, The View, America's Got Talent, and what was that, $100,000 Pyramid?
Or Where Did I Just See You Again? Rachael Ray.
Rachael Ray. So I wanted to mention the first place that I ever met Tom was on the Good Morning America show before COVID and all the COVID restrictions and everything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, you were fun.
If you guys want to come back, oneiota.com. I see a few of my favorites here, and we would love to see you again.
You mean when you watch that show, Oz? Yeah, you've never been in prison, by the way. And first of all, if you want, I'll tell you what exit he leaves out of, sir. You can meet him downstairs. Hey, don't you think I can't help you with him, man. You're on your own with that, brother.
Whenever I see a guy that muscular, I wonder, did he play for the Giants too? Did you play football at some point in your life, sir? There you go. Good job.
Yeah. Remember that before you make another joke about my man, because he's over there looking right now like he wants to slap the taste out your mouth. So, everybody, let's have some fun.
Now, what did I do? Because I made you sing, you said.
You didn't make me sing, but what happened was...
You felt I was abusive.
Unfortunately, I have a probably unique and maybe loud fashion sense.
Oh, yes, you do.
And I feel like for a comedian, that always puts me in the line of fire. So every time I've been on a show with you there, I've always had to stand up and you've always had some jokes.
Well, it's your fault for being attractive. Oh, my God. For those of you listening to this show who are learning about comedy through me, and God bless you if this is your first experience with that. But what we learn from me abusing Mark, and abuse is a very strong word, but making fun of, poking fun at, whatever you want to call it. What we learn is to punch up. You always pick on the guy who is well-dressed, and nobody wants to make fun of the guy who's dressed, like I am right now, or frankly, even you are right now.
Yeah.
Because if I started saying, "Hey, Mark, would you just get back from the track?" I look like a dick.
That's so true. I never thought of that.
However, if you were wearing suspenders when
I was wearing suspenders, that's right.
Okay, now notice how I didn't make fun of the suspenders for fear that you had problems with your hands and couldn't work the belt. But I'm like, oh, look at you. I obviously
you told me I was way too young to be wearing suspenders.
Okay, never mind. I didn't make fun of the suspenders. Okay, yeah, and you are. But that's that was one of the first jokes. I guess I learned as a kid. I'm not very good at knock or stock jokes, but one of them is, why does the firefighter wear suspenders? To keep his pants from falling down. Ha ha ha. Anyway, that just popped into my head.
You know what I want to mention that struck me when I met you? I didn't look at you and think, oh, this guy is going to be hilarious.
Nobody does.
And I've been to other shows, and the warm-up people sometimes are just giving you the rules, and they're not really that interesting. And you're like, okay, let's kind of skip that and get to the guests. And then you started talking, and nobody was laughing at first.
Well, that's the show too, yeah.
And then you kept going, and then all of a sudden you get a few chuckles, and then all of a sudden the whole room was laughing, and it was like, wait a minute, this is actually really funny.
Well, I'm curious. God, I almost want to ask, but that would be catty to ask, what shows do you think the warm-up isn't that interesting at?
Well, I went to the Drew Barrymore show. I don't
Okay, stop there. Okay, yeah, stop there. Okay, so it's funny. That guy, and I'll tell you exactly the box that people in my job are in. That guy is the normal warm-up comedian at Rachael Ray. And then what happened was he got to work at Drew Barrymore. And I'll tell you about all of them. I'm glad, and that's why I asked. I didn't ask to be catty, but I would have been catty if it was like the 8th person on the list. The hard part about the warm-up comedian job is not everybody wants you to be that interesting. You know, especially at a show like Rachel or a daytime show like Drew. And even I'll argue at Rachel, they've, you know, I'll say it out loud on an interview, but you know, a couple of them have said, hey, Tom, we need you to tone it down a little more. You know, that maybe the jokes were a little edgy or flirty or whatever you want to call it. And frankly, those instructions were not wrong.
Right.
You know, so I came from, for years, I worked at The View, where I was working for women who were real effing comedians. Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, Sherry Shepherd. And they let me be me, you know, so long as I wasn't mean. And that's the greatest piece of comedy advice Whoopi Goldberg ever gave me. Was there was a point in time where I was working at another show where they wanted somebody a little more vanilla than me. And I had told a joke that was hilarious. Okay. I'm going to blurt out the joke now because there was somebody who was not listening to the rules. You know, they were like walking out of their chair and whatnot, and they were wearing a Dukes of Hazzard t-shirt, and it happened to be January 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, wow, nothing like wearing a Martin Luther. Too bad you're not editing this, but here we go. Hey, nothing like wearing a General Lee t-shirt on Martin Luther King's birthday. And that's his actual birth date is January 5th.
Okay.
I know that because my cousin was born that day and my aunt worshiped Dr. King. That said, a couple of people got mad. Like, what the hell did he just do? And I thought the joke was incredibly clever. One, it showed I knew history. Right. Two, I put together the Dukes of Hazzard. And actually, I like the Dukes of Hazzard, but the General Lee is a little racy. And three, the person was being an a-hole to me. And Whoopi, you know, and I said, I'm not apologizing for that. That's a great joke. And Whoopi said to me when I went to her for advice, Whoopi's line was, well, Tom, were you saying it to be funny or were you saying it to be mean? And I just think that, and it's horrible that I got such powerful advice at age 40. Where was that when I was 12? You know, and it's a great, but, and frankly, I probably knew that advice beforehand because I am not mean. I am not edgy. I give uncomfortable compliments.
I know. I've seen that.
Yeah. So like, even like me talking about you, Mark, it was like all, and then frankly, I also, when I do warm up, you know, and I think this comes from me having my own podcast, The Tom Kelly Show, which is kind of about what you and I were talking about right before we hit record, which is about finding yourself after in a point of crisis. But I enjoy discovery. I enjoy meeting new people, and I enjoy when, and this is probably why I don't have a TV show of my own, but I enjoy that moment in warm-up comedy or when I'm performing live, when something is happening, you know, when there's a moment in the room where I'm learning something new about somebody or something like that. Mm-hmm. So when you get into all the other folks, I think the hard part is creating something that does not upstage the actual show.
I understand.
At The View, I was blessed to work for 3 women who got comedy and laid down the laws, and everybody followed those women. 4 women, if we count Rosie O'Donnell. And Barbara Walters was, she got me. She was nice. And, you know, and actually every woman who hosted The View, I actually, all joking aside, I don't have a mean thing to say about any of the 15 women I worked with who hosted The View. I stopped counting. But, you know, but I also had the popular kids liking me and saying, oh, no, this is what he does. Isn't it great? You know, so when you get to other shows, especially newer shows where they're figuring themselves out, you know, it's a little bit harder to warm up, and you almost got to find that right balance of communicating the business without stepping on toes. You know, so like the person you were talking about, and we don't have to name him because I felt like it was starting on not a comp. Actually, I'll say it. The guy you're talking about, Joey Cola, he is the king of warm-up comedians, the king of them. But he's adjusting his voice to each place he's working. You know, so if he's working in an environment that's a little more calm, he's calm. And the funny thing about that guy, Joey Cola, you're talking about, Joey is the biggest name to come out of Long Island that can still sell out a room on Long Island that never had a sitcom. You know, like if there's a lot of like, where are you from, Mark?
I live in Queens.
Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Canada.
Okay, so you won't get this, or you will get this when you're rich and move to the suburbs. No, Long Island's like its own planet, even though it's like
I know.
You're at.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, I mean, it's kind of fizzled now, or it's fizzled or evolved now. But in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of national comedy talent coming out of Long Island. Eddie Murphy is a big one. Who else? Rock was from Brooklyn. Eddie Murphy, Rosie O'Donnell, Kevin James, Ray Romano, Jerry Seinfeld. Who else? The bald, they're not really comedy.
Wow.
Yeah, but like for stand-up, Jackie the Joke Man, who is Howard Stern's partner in crime. You know, those are the big names. Amy Schumer came out later, but yeah, that's Joey Cola. And that Joey Cola is genius, which I have trouble with. I'm consistently me. That makes me money, and that has cost me work.
I understand that.
Yeah. So, you know, and I'm been lucky working at Rachel Ray, where they're giving me enough room to be me. And, you know, and then what you'll start to see is if you see these folks, and actually, to be honest with you, I'm competitive at times, but the other folks I know doing warm-up work in New York are pretty talented comics. And one or two of them, including Joey, who I'm just talking about, and maybe a little bit me, they're edgier on the night show than they are on the day show.
That makes sense too.
Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes like it's funny, you get into, and it's funny, my Tom Kelly Show podcast is all about me finding my voice that's for me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard because a lot of my work has been adapting my voice for other people.
I got you.
You know, like, I don't know if I'm allowed to reference. Am I allowed to reference what we were talking about before you hit record?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Mark was saying that he is a drug dealer and selling arms to Russia.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. And that when you're working for a practice that's supervised by people, you have to operate by a set of rules. And then, you know, the nice thing about being a comedian, I think you're doing this with your podcast, is, you know, if you blog or write your own self-help book, that's not under the supervision of, you know, and forgive me for not understanding where you work, hospitals or a mental health clinic or wherever, where you have to submit paperwork to people and you don't have the practices of modern science. And, you know, but whatever it is, you can be a little more freeform.
Yeah.
You know, and that's sort of the, you know, in comedy, I would argue 90% of it is freeform. And I have been blessed to make money in that 10% where, all right, you have to follow some rules. And there's a great line in comedy about improv comedy. I think they used to love her book at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater. Halpern, Sharna Halpern is the author. And the overall theme of her book, which I can't remember the name of the book, but the overall theme is finding creativity within limits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm glad that you said that exact thing, because it leads me to one of the questions I did want to ask you. Do you feel like there is limits in comedy?
Oh, yeah. Geez, especially now, man. I mean, look at me and the color of my skin. I represent, I mean, and it's not fair, you know, because I am descended from immigrants from another country, and I just grew up, you know, actually that town that I call my hometown is the land of white privilege, but I was raised before that in Brooklyn. comedy is about what you can get away with. That's the short answer. And frankly, black men are right behind me on the list. If you look at what Kevin Hart's been going through the last few years, and Chappelle, I would argue all comedy is simply what you can get away with. And frankly, so I could take both sides of an issue here. And I do that. I take both sides of an issue. There are truth tellers who are comedians, and then there are a-holes who are comedians. And arguably, I'll even say, especially in the case of Chappelle, because his name came out of my mouth a minute ago, Chappelle is half truth teller, half idiot. So when you get into, are there limits? This is my line on free speech and democracy right now. I just came up with this in the car when I was texting you. I was running late. I am an absolutist on all freedoms, but to have freedom, you have to be worth being free. And I think society has lost sight of that second sentence. Mm-hmm. I'm a believer in, everybody should have a gun, but we need you to be mature enough not to shoot people. And we're failing on that second part. I get what you're saying. I never thought, if you knew me in high school or even 4 years ago, I never thought I would start questioning free speech. I believe in free speech for everybody, but now we're living in a world where everybody on Twitter is saying something crazy, even the people I agree with. Like the one that I'm a fan of Kathy Griffin to a certain degree. I thought, just strike one on Kathy Griffin was the picture with Donald Trump's head cut off. That's sort of advocating violence, I thought. I mean, maybe not blatantly, but it kind of did. Listen, Kanye West has a right to be anti-Semitic. I'm going to get burned on that. Someone's going to find that sentence someday. But what Kanye West is doing is he's encouraging violence against Jewish people. If you read past a little bit of paint of stuff, right. When you get into limits, if you talked to me 5 years ago, even a year ago, I was an absolutist on free speech. But what's happening now in society is we are not bringing maturity and judgment to our freedoms.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there.
And listen, I think you were asking a much gentler question than I asked.
I was. You brought up a lot of different things that I have been thinking about overall.
Like an easy one. I have a great, I went to a high school that had a lot of black kids and a lot of white kids. And I would argue because the black guys were listening to Chris Rock and whatnot, I took a special interest in his stand-up. And I don't know if it was even because of the black, but whatever it was, for some reason, I took if you saw the town where I grew up, you would not believe I would take this much of an interest in Chris Rock. And I think I understood or liked Rock a bit more. Actually, I know why. I'm back. I remember who turned me on and what turned me on to Chris Rock. But Chris Rock was speaking from an underdog perspective. Right. And I don't want to recreate try to recreate anything and look ignorant, but I loved, there are jokes that I feel like I would have been a good writer for him at certain points. And there are times where I would, years ago, and it went viral. I had a joke about American holidays. Mm-hmm. And the joke ended with, and it was about how we don't respect Memorial Day. We don't respect Labor Day. We don't respect Veterans Day. And I think and I start snowballing with the joke. And it's true that we sell used cars on Memorial Day and Labor Day. And we're 5 minutes away from, and we use on President's Day, we use cartoon Abraham Lincoln to sell cars. And then the next line was, we're a few days away from using cartoon Martin Luther King to sell things. And it ends with me doing a Martin Luther King impersonation. Free at last, free at last. Everything's buy one, get one free at last. And my version, I did it in a room that was mixed, and I got a huge laugh on it. There would be times where I would do it in a room that was not mixed, and it'd be all white people, and it would go to crickets. And the point I'm making is Chris Rock years later did not steal the bit from me, did something similar. Huge laugh, works for Rock. And I'm not comparing myself to him, but I would argue you could take the same words, and if it's somebody you want to hear the words from, you'll listen closer.
Yeah.
You know, you could I would argue if you look at some of the, you know, and not to make it presidential, but you could say things like, you know, if you know, actually, I mean, George W. Bush, big on African causes. Somehow we all kind of giggle, you know, when it's him. You know, we don't take him seriously because he's a rich guy from Texas.
Yeah.
We could go down the list. Or I'm a man. Maybe actually, I mean, a funny one. My very I have a lot of feminists on my mother's and father's side of the family. And I remember years ago, my mother got very upset that I picked Obama over Hillary Clinton. She called me sexist. But, you know, and now I'm sort of stretching and rambling it there. But there's a certain point where people want to hear things from you.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, hang on. Do you hear that? Oh, there we go. I don't know. It was like a ghost just invaded my Zoom meeting. No, but the moral of the story is, can you get, you know, I think, but now getting into what comedy is.
Yeah.
I think comedy right now, man, it's sanitary. You know, Jim Gaffigan has a career out of it. I'm starting to think, geez, I should be doing this. Jim Gaffigan does not make political statements. He jokes about food. Jim Gaffigan can do your nephew's bar mitzvah. Jim Gaffigan has opened for the Pope. You know, wow. Now, is he changing the world? Maybe, maybe not. You know, I mean, and I think the great example of what you can get away with right now is Chappelle. Did you watch Chappelle's special he got in trouble with? The one on.
I did.
Now, I'm going to argue as a man who I have a few friends who are being patient and teaching me about the trans stuff. I don't know if I'm there or not yet on certain things, but my mind is open and I'm learning. Right. I'm going to argue he did some pretty old-fashioned jokes in that stand-ups. You know, and your dad's your mom, you know, whatever. Okay, I don't even know if that's offensive or if it's just been done before. You know, it just felt easy. But in the middle of all of, you know, and I'm saying this on the top of a mountain of privilege, you know, or perceived privilege, whatever you want to call it. But as a guy who could stand to learn about other people, he has one sentence in there that I thought that hit me over the head and nobody's talking about in the newspapers, which was, America cares more about trans rights than the rights of a black guy. Mm-hmm. And I found that to be a powerful truth for me, but because I think he wasn't getting away with all the trans jokes, that powerful thought got overshadowed.
Yeah, I agree. I tend to agree there.
I mean, did that thought stick out to you?
It did. No, it actually did. Yeah. And
I'm going to give him a minute of credit. I don't know why you came to your balding white friend for, I'm spewing out stuff that, and again, even talking about this stuff with you, there's someone who's going to say I look ignorant. And what the hell are you doing pontificating on this, Tom?
Right.
And I am pontificating in that, that whole special, and I'm going to argue he had a lot of easy jokes in there that could have gone away. I'll even argue maybe he is as ignorant about trans people as your grandpa might have been about people who looked like me, and my grandpa might have been about people who looked like you. But and we didn't give him patience. In the old days, you could let people be a little bit of ignorant if they had a good heart. And we're not even questioning if he had a good heart or not.
Right.
You know, right. And we're back to that. So to your point, you know, so I'm rambling, but can you get away with, you know, I think comedy is, and I just went a very long way to say comedy is what you can get away with. And I'm going to also argue going the other way for a second. And again, it's about freedom. and with freedom comes responsibility. I think that we're missing a certain amount of, like, what's the old line? Do better, Karen, or whatever. We're not doing better.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I'm a fan of Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart said FAG somewhere along the line. And Tracy Morgan, frankly, has jokes that nowadays I don't think hold up. I don't see, but are we improving our language going forward? And those two might be. I'm not, I'm not keeping tabs. But that's the other one is, are we, quote unquote, doing better? Or are we making, and it goes back to that sentence I said about, that line about Whoopi. Are you telling the joke to be funny? Are you telling the joke to tell a truth? Or you're just being mean? And
yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I wanted to mention to you? I mean, I had so many thoughts during what you were saying there. I went to a comedy show of Jay Pharoah. You know Jay Pharoah?
Haven't seen Pharoah perform live. How was he?
Hilarious. So, but the show was out in Suffolk, and the majority of the crowd and the population in there was white. There was only a few black people and a few colors in the crowd. And he got up there and started to do a whole bunch of Trump jokes. And the crowd was a lot of pro-Trump in the crowd, and it was around election time. So I found that really interesting that he was willing to do that, knowing where he was going. And then as he started getting heckled, and he was like, I already know about y'all Suffolk people. Y'all are racist anyways. I already know what's going on. I was prepared for this. So there were these people that were yelling at him from the balcony, and security came to kick them out. And he grabbed the mic and he was like, don't kick them out. And he just started making jokes about those people in the crowd. And he was like, you guys can F up the show for the rest of the people in here, because I can just sit here with the mic and just talk to you guys the entire time, and I will. So I'm going to keep going until you guys stop. And he just made jokes about them until they stopped talking. And then he said, okay, back to the set.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other animal. I don't know. So you sort of hit three notes there. One, he's magical and can pull that off. I'm not quite there yet with that. Two, the Trumpers, and I'm pretty compassionate about Trumpers. I mean, it sounds awful. I'll never vote for him. But I forgive the ignorance to a certain degree on Trumpers. But what's funny about some of the Trumpers right now is I went to a show in New Jersey where there was a comedian who said, I voted for Trump, blah, 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 made a Trump joke. And he also did a few anti-Biden jokes or whatever. But what was funny about this guy, and somebody got really mad in the crowd, that they weren't pro-Trump enough.
Really?
The guy said, and that was, the Trumpers are crazy. And listen, and I'll go the other way. My liberal friends are pretty crazy too, except that for some reason we accept them a bit more. But if you have an opinion that's out of line, you could be out of work forever now in this age of cancel culture.
Yeah.
And I really don't even want to repeat the ones I disagree with for fear I get canceled from my politically correct job. But where is the line? And that's the great question in America. And watch me take both sides of an argument, which is, how do you, how do we tell the truth or entertain and do better? And then you get into when you get into comedy, and you were just asking, going back to your very first question, when you were talking about how I am the best warm-up comedian in New York City, and I agree. You have to figure out too, what's the mission? And this is something you could say for life. Like you're doing therapy. What's the mission? Curing the patient? Or is it just to make their day better for tomorrow? Or is it to tell them they're an effing asshole?
Right.
Yeah. So that's my and the same thing with comedy. Now you get into the thing of with strong politics. And my politics are sort of up the middle. I'm sort of at this belief where this year I'm leaning slightly right. Last year I was leaning slightly left, or I'm sort of disappointed in everybody. Actually, that's really how I'm politically homeless is a better word. I really was disappointed in the choices New York gave us for governor on both sides.
Right.
And I could go down the list of where I'm disappointed. Anyway, am I like, if I go perform at the, what theater was it in Suffolk?
I forgot the name of it.
You remember the town?
No, I don't even remember the town. I never been there before.
Okay, but yeah, if I'm performing at the Argyle Theater in Babylon, they have good comedy shows there. Am I there to change the world with my opinions? Or am I there to get a couple of quick yucks and make my money?
Mm-hmm.
Am I there to, listen, Chappelle is a real truth teller. And I keep bringing up Chappelle because Chappelle really took his money and said, yeah, I really don't want to be the hokey pokey comedy guy on Comedy Central. I'm going to just go hide for 5 years and write a special.
You want to know something though? You mentioned Rock. You mentioned Chris Rock and his back in the day specials. I went to the Rock Heart tour in the summertime, Jones Beach Theater, and it was very watered down. Not that it wasn't funny, but it was very watered down, definitely compared to his old specials. And he even referenced that he watered it down on purpose.
Back then.
No, now.
Now
he said that now he made it a lot lighter because of the cancel culture.
Yeah, I don't know, but like going back, but that's a great point. But at a certain point, man, you have to figure out why you're doing this. Chappelle is a billionaire artist performing, but he's happiest performing those little clubs.
Yeah.
I know a lot of guys who are like that, and a lot of them have died in gutters and alone in hotel rooms. Then there's a middle ground, or, there's a guy, Gilbert Gottfried, told a racist and inappropriate, and it did offend me at the time, tweet about Japan after the nuclear collapse of one of their reactors in a typhoon or whatever the flood was. Mm-hmm. And he got fired from Aflac. He lost $12 million a year off a tweet. Now, was that tweet changing the world? It was kind of just mean. It was funny. I don't even remember if it was funny, but I think it was funny if you're mean, but it wasn't a truth. It didn't open your, it was kicking people while they were down. Now we could argue it was dark, and that's a different kind of funny. Mm-hmm. But, because then you get into, because it's funny, like on my TikTok, which is also Tom Kelly's show, I met a woman on St. Mark's Place while promoting a show, and the woman started yelling at us why comedians are the devil, and you think you have a license to be able to say whatever you want. And the woman might have been of trans descent, whatever, she may not, she was a woman. She was very much a woman, but she may not have always been a woman, whatever the right way to say that is. And even that sentence right there, she was not a cisgender woman. There you go. And I get it though, but I could get it. You know what? If you're of a background, gender preference or whatever, and you feel you're the butt of all the jokes, you're going to hate comedy,
Yeah.
But you get it. And listen, and you're ready for another funny one. Rock is some form of a truth teller. I think so, or at least for me, I thought he made me a little bit smarter. I know a lot of guys, white and black, who think they're truth tellers. They just suck. Is that another standard for your freedom of speech, that you have to be good? You know what I don't like?
I don't like how people are more concerned with the canceling of the people who make certain ignorant statements versus educating them on whatever it is that they are ignorant about and hoping that they're going to do better.
Well, you know what? Because here's the problem. And again, freedom works when everybody participates in a wholehearted way. I was, I don't want to bash my loved ones, but, my grandparents were very pro-Italian. My father was Irish, and holy cow, even inter-European, it was culture shock. But they always treated people, even though they may have said weird things about every culture, they gave each human being a shot, and they always did a little better. That's the part that's gone, is the willingness to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to argue on every walk of life right now, Mark. We're so worried about having our freedom of speech, we have lost our sight of our responsibility to listen. I'm going to write that one down. That's another small one. Yeah. I actually really like that because you get into, make a, pick any joke I'm trying to think because I'm not real.
You make them up on the fly.
No, I do a lot on the fly, but I'm trying to find I'm trying not to get myself canceled by making a point.
I got you.
But there have been, I'm on a quest to be funny and not hurt feelings. I have friends say, you're not a comedian, you're a clown.
Wow.
But I'm trying to find one so I don't sound ignorant. It's easy to piss on Kanye right now. Whatever Kanye is saying, Kanye is so obsessed about being right, he's not listening to why he's hurting people's feelings. And I think we could go down the list of a lot of other smart people who got punished, and they didn't start listening to why they were hurting feelings until there was a financial consequence. But going the other way for a minute, are we overdoing it? And what is the penance for for effing up, for anything?
Mm-hmm.
If I tweeted something with a dirty word 15 years ago that was more acceptable then than now, I say, I'm sorry. Well, but you did it 50 times back in 2008. But hang on. But what if I did it 1,000 times? But where's the line for these things? And I think that's an interesting standard, or there's standards of people. I know women who, have said FAG, but they were also donating to gay causes. And I think we're also in this world of, and I don't want to go too far down this road now, but where some people could say one thing but I'm in a club, I could say it. No, I'm in a club. No, I knew a guy in the 3rd grade, so I can say it, And I think we're just so busy being right, we're not listening.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And I think that's so to your point about, I actually, I'm anti-cancel culture, and I'm also anti-cancel culture. Because the people who are screaming, hey, we got to stop cancel culture. Where's Don Rickles? Well, maybe it's, and here's where I'm at on Don Rickles. If you go watch a Dean Martin celebrity roast, all of these celebrities you grew up with, and you're going to say this stuff doesn't hold up. But then there are other people who say, oh, isn't that stuff great? Aren't they nostalgic about it? The great analogy for life is Archie Bunker and All in the Family. Did you watch All in the Family?
Yes, I love All in the Family.
There are people who will say, hey, we can't have another Archie Bunker ever again. Well, for 2 reasons. Reason 1, Archie Bunker, the guy who played Archie Bunker, knew it was a farce. There are people who thought Archie Bunker was the hero. And I think the guy who portrayed Archie he wasn't a hero. He wasn't an anti-hero. He was growing, and he didn't always get there. But there are people like, hey, Archie Bunker, I want to be Archie Bunker. No, that's not what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm writing down what I'm saying. I'm really smart today.
Even
know,
even somebody like Al Bundy, he's pretty mild when you think of it, but if you just plug in all the things that he was saying.
Oh, he was. Oh, are you kidding me? But now that's a mountain of privilege you're on with me.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, that's my thing on privileges. You know, we're all privileged in our own little way. You know, and if you use privilege, I hate the word white privilege. And not to turn it. I hate the word privilege. But if you use privilege instead of just saying privilege, because privilege makes it sound like, oh, you're rich, you get it handed to you. No, nobody gets anything handed to you. Privilege, to me, means your inability to understand other people and what they might be going through, and that they may have a different set of cards. And you could be in the gutter and have a different, like you could have pardon me for cursing, but you could have a poopy life, and you as a man, you have a certain amount of things that work for you. Whatever it is, we all have a certain amount of things that work in our favor. And the problem is people aren't listening. And that's why we're now even still we're protesting. That's why there was a red wave, not red wave, whatever you want to call it. Actually, my big fear is when they're done counting the votes, that they're not going to realize maybe it's time to come back to the middle and listening to each other. Because right now it's one of those things like, well, I don't believe student loan forgiveness is financially viable. And I don't right now. With that, we're giving everybody $10,000 off their loans. That's not enough to make anybody's difference. It's not making a 10 grand off your loan is not changing a person's life unless it's the last 10 grand to go, and we're not encouraging people who can't afford to pay their bills to pay it quickly. But if you give everybody 10 grand, it adds up and it's a lot of debt. That's my thought. I say that I'm racist. I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other thing. I'm privileged, but I was going back to something about male privilege and stuff, there's a certain point with freedom of speech. You got to be you got to earn it, and I felt like there was a time where we were growing slower, but now we're so busy being right and making people pay a consequence that we're missing the point of what mistake was made.
No, you're making a lot of good points there. Especially when you said that thing about privilege, I was thinking to myself of these conversations that I started to have in 2020 during all the protests. I was actually participating in some of them, and I would post some of that stuff on my Facebook. And I grew up in an area of Canada. Well, Canada in general has a mostly white population, and where I grew up was no different.
What part of Canada?
Near Toronto area.
Okay.
Oshawa, it's called, 45 minutes from Toronto.
Right.
And I had friends that I've had since then, but we never really had those kind of conversations. When I came here to New York, we started having those conversations online based on what was going on in the world. And when you make posts about certain things, you get all these comments. So I had friends of mine that were white that were like, I'm not privileged because I grew up poor. I have been pulled over by the police. I have experienced XYZ, different things that they're saying, which I think kind of goes with what you're saying. It misses the mark because it's not necessarily about money or, yeah.
Well, privilege is listen, there's a lot of things in life where I agree with the concept, but the label is so off-putting. The label is so off-putting. Because privilege kind of implies wealth. Everything's handed to you, this, that, and the other thing. I think if you change the word to perspective, but then perspective doesn't mean you don't, I think if you change the word to perspective, you might get more people on board. And I would argue, but on the other hand, I like the word privilege because it does sort of make you say, shut up and listen for a minute.
Yeah.
But but privilege comes in lots of packages, male privilege, whenever you have, and here's my thing about all this sort of stuff is when you have, I've just learned this because I've seen harassment on all sorts of levels go in all sorts of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And what I have come to realize is whoever's in charge does get corrupted. Right now, it's a lot, that's a whole other animal. And whoever's in charge needs to pause and listen to the soldiers. And there's something to be said about, and even in the environment, and I don't want to go down this road too much, but there was an environment. How old are you?
35.
I think when we were growing up, I'm 46. The environment was, let's bring everybody to the table. Now the message is, well, we can push a few people off the table. And again, we're not listening to people. We're not listening to our Jewish friends. For whatever reason, I don't know what the stats are, this, that, or the other thing, but they feel less safe right now. It seems to be the media's calmed down. We're not listening to our Asian friends. We're not listening to our Black friends. And maybe we're also not, because I don't disagree with some of the politics coming out. But those crazy friggin' Trumpers, you know what? We're not listening to them in a way that makes them feel like they're at the table too. And they're getting crazy, and then you see everybody start getting fractured,
Right.
and I think that's a big thing for me right now is, there's a few things I don't like with election security. I've seen elections stolen for Democratic friends. I don't like certain things but if you have a different opinion, you're a jerk. You're right. You don't like a woman's right to choose. What? No. We're, whatever it is, I think we're also in a world right now where the sensible people in the middle who could unite us are afraid of being canceled too, because they don't want to speak. Like if you say something slightly left or right of center, and again, it goes back to the joke I made about the guy in New Jersey. He didn't vote Trump enough for the Trump guy to be happy.
Yeah, that's something.
And I will argue with my more Democratic friends. I didn't vote for Biden twice. And I'm sure, I'm not liberal enough. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're not, and I think that applies to everybody. That I'm sympathetic, but and I think the people in the middle. When you go up the middle, you get attacked from both sides.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, there was a time where we thought Mitt Romney was the worst possible Republican president ever.
Right.
There was a time when we framed John McCain, a guy I almost voted for, except that McCain had picked Sarah Palin, a complete idiot, to be vice president. Obama versus, I think it became I liked Obama and McCain equally in 2008. I just liked Joe Biden a little bit more than Sarah Palin. I thought they were both kind of silly at the time.
Right.
I thought Biden was more sensible than, that's how I made that decision. But we were framing McCain like he was a complete piece of poop. So that's I guess. So anyway, that's my point on politics. But, and then when you get into humor, you could tip your toe in the wall. It's where do you get your check?
I've always felt like it's a tough business to work in. Already, I felt like it was already a tough business, but I just think in this climate,
Listen, it's a tough climate everywhere, man. It's a tough climate everywhere. It's a tough climate being a human being. I think at a certain point, you just gotta listen to your fellow neighbor. You got to listen to your audience. And then you got to remember why you're in the game. And at the end of the day, with my podcast, it's about sharing my roller coaster. And with my, comedy, it's about bringing joy.
And with that, I'll say I watched some of those episodes of your podcast, and I thought it was so funny because watching you sit outside and just be like, okay, whatever happens, happens. Whoever passes by me in the street, I'm just going to talk to them and see if they talk to me back and if they want to sit down with me and become a part of the show, or if I just give them a comment and they keep walking, I admire that. Something that really stood out to me was when I started going on GMA in the audience and you were making those jokes. I actually love roasts. I love watching them.
Well, I never, it's funny. I never liked real roasts.
You didn't?
Because you know what it is? Then you got to take it. I like giving the jokes. I don't like taking it.
I understand. But in the audience, sometimes you're just going to be seen as like a little clip that's on there for 2 seconds. And you're like, hey, I was on the Good Morning America show. But you don't really feel like you are a part of the shows. Like you're just a little dot on the screen, unless you are a participant or something. But when you get in the audience and you're like, stand up, and you make those couple of jokes, I'm like, I feel like I was,
Well, I'll tell you. But yeah, if you were editing this, and I hope you edit it down, because God knows I was rambling a lot about stupid stuff with no real answers. But warm-up work is about making people feel welcome and making them feel like you're a part of something. And if you think about it, man, especially it's a little bit, we're desensitized to it in this age of TikTok. But dude, I am 46 years old. I grew up in Brooklyn with a black and white TV set, 5 channels. I have a color TV in my pocket and everything is on. I could watch whatever the hell I want. So I think what you sort of forget when you do a TV show, and I do this as the warm-up comedian, is it's about making people feel welcome and like they're a part of something bigger. And if you think about it, a television show, especially in the old, quote unquote, old fashioned way of doing a TV show, we're connecting with the country.
Yeah.
Not on, actually around the world. You're from Canada.
Yeah.
Your mom and dad watch, is Good Morning America on in Canada?
Yep.
Yeah. So there you go. We're international. And what I miss about that show having a crowd, even as a fan, is, there you are. You're a part of something bigger. And that energy is spreading around the world.
Yeah, and I think Good Morning America specifically had more of an intimate crowd than some other sets, because I always remember Michael Strahan walking through the crowd. He gave you a cosign that first one that I was ever on. So he was like, this man is one of the funniest people I know.
Now, I'm going to tell you this. I'm not going to go too far down the list of celebrities, but if you get a chance to buy a Michael Strahan book, if you get a chance to hear him speak, that's a man who puts his emotional money where his mouth is. The man is the real deal. I have brotherly affection for him, and I say that in 2 ways. One, he's been kind to me, and 2, he has a lot of similar interests to my younger brother, Sal, where we're also just different enough that we're not hanging out in our social time. I think he's a brother in that I love him, and that I also know I'd run out of things to talk about on a Sunday afternoon at a certain point. I don't watch enough sports. I don't, and he does, but we still have that like affection. And he's funny. Michael Strahan's a guy to watch for any form of performing. I think Michael Strahan is the highest average of kindness, good looks, muscles, and ability to pull things off out of any major celebrity I've worked with.
Wow. Well, yeah. I want to thank you so much for your time.
Dude, you're a treat, except that I have to finish up a Word document by half an hour ago. I would stay and talk to you forever. I hope when your podcast takes off, you have me on it again, because this was a treat.
Thank you so much. Sorry about that. I guess I was on mute. But I was just saying, thank you guys so much for watching this interview. I thought that it was a really great interview. I knew that as he was talking, there were points of this interview that were going to be controversial. But the thing that I've realized through covering things like reality TV is that almost nothing is going to not be controversial. Maybe if I was talking about food, or maybe if I was talking about, I can't even say music, because music is controversial as well. I have come to a point where I welcome and embrace that, not in terms of looking for things that are controversial, but just accepting and knowing that, especially in a platform doing interviews with people, you never know what they're going to say. There are some people that you know more than others. For example, I've met Tom Kelly about 3 to 4 times, but I don't know Tom Kelly. So most of what he was saying in this interview is brand new. All I knew is he was a guy who told funny jokes and walked around the audience. I don't know if you guys have been to those comedy shows where the comedian, half of their material is basically just going around and looking and seeing who's in the crowd and asking them questions and then making jokes on the spot. That's what I knew about him. So I learned a lot about his ideals, his upbringing, different things that he saw from his perspective, which were interesting for me to know. And I think the thing that I liked is that he never presented his opinion as the be all end all, but it's like, this is just my viewpoint. So I did say I was going to post some of these comments, because not everyone who's watching on the replay crew won't be able to see these comments. That's okay, Donna D. This thing is going to be posted, so you are going to be able to see the replay. It was a great interview. Thank you for that, Shai. Now, I wanted to put up this comment here when I find it, that Donna D suggested. Oh, I have to put this up here. New member. Shout out to Ashley for being a new member. Shout out to Ashley for being a new member. Not a new subscriber, a new member, because I just started putting up memberships. And also, shout out to Lisa D for becoming a YouTube member. I appreciate both of you. Now, I'm going to look for this part of Donna D. Okay. Donna D suggested that it could be called white advantage, why people have always had affirmative action. So that was in response to the part of the conversation where Tom was saying that he kind of understands the verbiage of saying something is privilege, but the term privilege might be offensive to some people, or they might not connect with that particular term because they look at maybe their upbringing and say, well, I wasn't rich, or I didn't experience this kind of thing that they associate with privilege. So I thought that was an interesting suggestion of saying advantage. Advantage, I think, is a more neutralish term. Those can be uncomfortable comedy shows. And I don't know if you guys have been to, well, I mean, I'm here in New York City. So the New York City comedy clubs, not the actual big shows with headliners, but the smaller ones, are in these like small venues, and there's almost no avoiding them. And especially, like I said in the beginning of this interview, especially me, I don't think I've ever sat in a comedy show and not at some point in time be the subject. So I have had to have a good sense of humor about that. And that's no different in any of these TV shows that I go to. They say something. It's not necessarily like it's super insulting, but it's just that I don't go there in average, just regular clothes. So just that alone, they see whatever I'm dressed in and automatically are like, oh, let's go talk to this guy and see what he has to say. Sometimes it's embarrassing, but I've just learned to go with the flow. That's so true, but that's my favorite type of comedy. It's always fresh. I've worked and traveled with comedians. Really? I learn something new about you every day, Lisa. Awesome, Lisa D and Ashley. I know you like to be in the front, but exactly. I remember actually going to a comedy show, and it was a first date. And it wasn't my suggestion to go to this comedy show. I don't know. For me personally, I wouldn't have wanted to do a comedy show for that. And then lo and behold, there's an open seat by the front, and this comedian is just asking these questions. And I remember one thing that he said is like, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" I said that I'm a mental health counselor. He's, "Oh, really?" I don't remember what he said about that. But what I do remember was he was like, "So what are your thoughts on her so far? You see a future? You think you guys are going to get married?" And I didn't even respond yet. I just looked at her quickly, and just the look. He had this whole roasting session. He was like, "Oh, that means that after the night is over, you might have to get your own ride. That means that he was only in it for the sex. And now that might not happen because I'm calling him out. Because when you ask a guy if he sees the future with you and he thinks that he's going to get married to you, the first thing is not to look at you and give that look that he just gave. The first thing to do is to answer the question. Like, it shouldn't be a second thought." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't even know this person like that to answer that question like that." And it was so uncomfortable, but it was kind of funny, but it was awkward also. It was awkward also, for sure. No eye contact doesn't work. They'll be like, they can smell the fear. Exactly. When I first met this guy and he told me to stand up and all that, I didn't really want to stand up, but I just know it's just comedy rules that if the comedian tells you to do something and you just don't do it, you don't know what they're going to say next. So I'm like, I would rather just stand, let him say whatever he has to say, and then sit down rather than be like, "No, I'm not going to stand up." And then he's just like, "Oh, this guy, whatever he's going to say about me." Yeah, it was a rough scenario. It was a rough scenario, Lisa. At least you learned from that experience. I guess in the future you would have said, "This is our first date." But yeah, low key, I'm a little bit prepared. I don't have a script, but I am prepared at comedy shows for if a comedian asks me a question, because if you guys have been to multiple ones, you know that the questions all fall along the same lines. Oh, they might ask you about what you're wearing, or they might ask you about who you're with. Is that your girlfriend, sister, mom, brother, friend, whatever, boyfriend, whatever it is? And then they have like a general line of questioning that they do. So I come prepared, ready to answer those questions. And sometimes I've even had like funny things to say as a response in my head, but those times when I have the funny things prepared, they don't ask me the questions that I expect them to ask me. Matter of fact, in my mind, I'm a comedian somewhere. I have it that I was voted the funniest person in my class in high school, and I never told a joke. So maybe that just boosted my head up, but I think that I'm funny. Now, in terms of getting up and doing a whole stand-up comedy set, I don't think so. I just think that I'm a funny person. You know what, Donna D? I would love to go to a comedy show and prepare a lie. What do you do for a living? I'm whatever. I'm a professional juggler. You know, I'm just making something up, but just have something prepared. Like, this is what I do, or I'm there with somebody and I make up our whole situation, why we got there, what's our relation to each other. I think that would be really fun to just fool the comedian just for laughs. I feel the same way. Yeah, y'all. So I like getting a different variety of people to interview. I know that y'all are interested in seeing me get Big Brother people or Survivor people or challenge people. And I do actually have 2 major challenge people on deck. I do have 2 major challenge people on deck and 1 Big Brother player later on into the new year. I have 3 people that you guys are going to be interested in seeing me interview. But in the meantime, as you can see, I'm still moving. I have a goal of interviewing at least 1 person a month. And this month I've interviewed 3, I believe. I think those are all in November. As a matter of fact, I interviewed Shar, the life coach. I interviewed John Brennan, and now I have interviewed Tom Kelly. So my goal was 1 per month, and I already have 3 this month. That's my last one for this month, but I tripled my goal, but I plan to continue to have at least 1 per month. So I promise y'all, I'm not sitting around here waiting for all these people that I have emailed to respond to me before I continue with my interviews. I like to reach out to people who I've connected with in some way, shape, or form. I think that they would be interesting to talk to, and I'm going to keep it moving. And I actually appreciate more these people that are willing to do these interviews with me at these early stage where they have nothing to gain. Because if you go on a huge platform and do an interview, even if you're not getting some kind of monetary compensation for that, you get exposure of millions and millions of viewers. So these people are looking at my channel and seeing, for some of them, like Ayana, when she interviewed with me, I had like 100 and something followers at that time. She's like, no problem. And then when I got to Shar, well, Shar is different because she was working with me, you know, and she would have done the interview, I believe, with 1 follower or 1,000 followers or 1 million. But John Brennan, he got to me when I had about 1,700 and something followers, and like 100 more for Tom Kelly. I think 1825 or whatever it was when I last checked is a lot, but it's still not something that is advancing their careers that much at this moment. So I'm thankful for these people who are willing to support me from the beginning. Let me get back to these comments. Me and my friends used to prepare characters. You know what, Lisa? I probably shouldn't even be saying this, but me and one of my best friends, when we used to go out, we used to create names, jobs, and all that kind of stuff, just in case the people that we meet when we go out, we did not want them to know our real information. And we would plan and prepare that before we go out. So it would be like, no, I really like this person, so now I'm going to give them my real information, my real job, and all that. But if I didn't, then you're getting the fake name. I'm Tyrone. I live in Georgia, and I'm visiting from Georgia. I work for a tech company, whatever. That's why maybe I would actually be a great Big Brother player if I actually wanted. If I didn't want to apply for Big Brother before, I definitely don't want to now. Telling you that. So the cancel culture, it so appears that Black people get ragged on more than other groups. They do, because we're the ones who can be canceled because we don't own anything. That's the issue. There's a lot of Black people with money, for sure. There's a lot of Black people with money, but usually they are not within the ownership groups. So it's like if they say something or do something wrong, canceling them can mean they lose everything that they have worked so hard for. That's why an end goal or a longer term goal for what I'm doing now is to be able to have some ownership. I want to have like multiple books. I want to have my own platform, you know, things that people cannot take away from me, even if they don't like me, or even if they didn't like one particular thing that I had to say. Your channel is really going in a great direction. Love the content you're developing, and even more that you're live watching your vids with us. Yeah, and I'll tell you why I watch the videos live with you, Lisa, because I did interviews before, and I did video recaps before, and I did all of this before, and I would just pre-record it and post it, and they were not getting the views. And then I had an epiphany when I first started doing live videos that people like these a lot more when they can actually give me feedback and give me live feedback and hear my thoughts about what they're saying. So this is more of my lane. And either way, when I would record the videos only, you don't know. It would be a 30-minute video and I would spend 3 hours trying to get it perfect. I'd watch it back and I'd be like, I don't like this. I'm going to re-record this. This looks this way. This looks that way. It's not perfect when I do it live, but it's the connection aspect is what people enjoy, I feel. I'm not telling y'all. I'm just giving feedback of what people have told me. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Ashley. I have actually reached out to Charlemagne the God a few times. I will reach out again. I saw Charlemagne the God twice. One time on the Drew Barrymore show and one time on the Nick Cannon show. And both times I was hoping he would stick around a little bit or engage with the audience a little bit so that I might have a chance to be like, hey, I have a platform, whatever. But you don't always get those opportunities on TV show sets because sometimes they just come in and do their segment and go. Sometimes they're busy, sometimes they have multiple things going on. But I will reach out to Charlemagne the God again. I mean, Will Smith, I would love to interview Will Smith, but reaching Will Smith, good luck. I will try. Trust me, I've tried with a lot of people. A lot of people that you guys suggest to me, I have already tried. Because if you saw my outbox, my Gmail outbox, I email at least 2 to 3 different people every single day. Every single day. And 1% of the people I reach out to respond. I won't say 1%. Let's say 10% of the people I reach out to respond to me. But of those 10%, like 5% say no, and like 3% don't follow back, and then don't follow up with me, I should say, and don't respond to me again. And then like 1 or 2% says, yes, I'll do it. I like what Tom said about not liking the cancel culture, but also not liking canceling the cancel culture. Yeah, and I never heard somebody say that before, Lisa, and I guess the point that he was getting at is he doesn't like people to just be canceled for a mistake, but he also doesn't like people to be able to think that they could say any possible thing that they want, whether it's hateful, spiteful, malicious, sexist, racist, misogynistic, whatever it is. Like, he doesn't want people to feel that they can say anything they want without consequence. And yeah, that's another thought for another day. But yeah, I liked what he said there. Awesome, Mark. You're doing great, and it's gonna continue. It's gonna grow and grow. I think with these 2 new subscriptions, that after September, October, November, we're almost in December. 3 months of work, I will finally have reached the $100 threshold to be able to get a paycheck from YouTube. It sounds crazy to me when I think about the amount of hours that I have been on YouTube to reach $100. And that's not even because I've only received $100. That's because that's my cut of what YouTube takes. I've received more than $100 in super chats. But I will say that during the time when I was not monetized, the community gave me probably about $500 in PayPal and Cash App, which really carried me over and really gave me the motivation to continue doing this. Because I'm like, y'all don't have to give me a dime. You could sit here and watch this stuff for free all day. Like, what difference is it going to make? But it makes a difference to me. And that's why I put in such a big effort to create this content for you guys. Lisa, I didn't really want to say that, but that's really where it was happening. That's really where it was happening. It was like we would go out with the intention to like meet females, but it was like we would consult each other beforehand, figure out our stories or whatever. Then we would consult each other in the middle again and be like, do you really like this person that you're talking to or not? If the answer is like a thumbs up, then it's like, okay, scrap the plan. And if it's like thumbs down or like then it's like we're going through with our predetermined plan. I think my name was either it's gonna sound really stereotypical, but my name was either like Tyrone or Jerome. That was like the top two names that I would use. For me, it's definitely, I agree, Donna D, for sure. It's definitely a case-by-case basis. It's not a one-size-fits-all type of situation. There are cases where I'm like, I don't want to hear from this person again. This comment, done. I'm finished. But why I say I have problems with the cancel culture is that people use it too fast and quickly. Like somebody could literally say something ignorant based on something that they don't know. And yeah, maybe they shouldn't have said it. Yeah, maybe they should have done some research and figured things out before they open their mouth to say that thing. But ignorance does not always mean that they're like a bigot or a racist or whatever else. It could just be ignorance. And I'll give you an example. I tell you guys that I used to run therapy groups. And I remember in one of the therapy groups, there was this white female and a black female. And so the white female, we were at this point of this discussion talking about, I don't remember what we were talking about, but the white female said to the black female, I love your hair. I don't really know what that is. Is that extensions? Is that a weave? Or is that a wig? And then the black female just stood up out of their chair and was like, I should knock your ass out. Never ask a black woman about her hair. And I was like, oh God, don't let these people fight in my group. I had to stand up. Other people stood up, get in between them. And thankfully, I had another guy in the group pull the black lady aside and be like, she didn't mean anything by that. It was a legitimate question. And I spoke to the white female and I was like, you know what? I know that you didn't. She was telling me, I'm so sorry. I literally just wanted to know. I think her hair looks nice and I didn't know what it was because I've never had extensions or a weave or wig or whatever. And yeah, it was ignorant, but that's the exact type of example that I'm talking about. You're standing up and ready to knock her out because she said that. Just pull her to the side maybe afterwards and be like, hey, I was offended when you asked this particular question or whatever. And, next time maybe you could give like a little introduction of what you're saying because it's a topic that we as black women are sensitive about. Whatever. Oh, man. Exciting. I don't know which part you're responding to because I'm late on these comments. I see what you're saying. I've just made my personal choices. I could cancel them with my own action or inaction, but leave room for others to do what they want without judgment. You'll have to explain that one a little further. Thank you, Van Hoot. Appreciate the super chat. Thanks for reaching out to try to get us great interviews. Very much appreciated. And one of these days, trust me, one of these days, one of these big name people that I'm reaching out to is just going to be like, yes. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I got this person, I got this person, I got this person. And then I got Barack Obama. What's up? I got Barack Obama. Like I'm a very optimistic person. And they say the day you plant the seeds is not the same day you will eat the fruit. So right now I'm planting a million different seeds. Who knows when they're going to respond? Who knows what particular fruit that it's going to be, but I do know that at some point it's coming. At some point it's coming. Y'all are going to see it. Huge milestone mark. Celebrate every victory, big or small. Even this interview with Tom Kelly, I consider a victory. I like Tom Kelly. I respect the guy. You know, he's very funny. Trust me. If you are in an audience set with him, like I said, you see him and you're like, this guy's going to be boring. Then all of a sudden he starts talking and you're like, yo, he's hilarious. Yo, YouTube. I had a YouTube page before that was monetized, and it used to be much easier and much more fruitful in terms of money. But apparently what I learned about YouTube is that people used to post a lot of content that wasn't theirs, and then the people who owned the content did this huge class action lawsuit against them, and that's the reason why we have these very strict rules right now. So what we have with YouTube right now is like a 55-45 split. And I know maybe I shouldn't even be saying this stuff on a live, but I don't really care. YouTube has a 55-45 split where what you're putting on, the revenue, is 55% for you and 45% for them, just for being the platform that they use. They take 45% out of your pocket, and that's for the clicks. And then for like the super chats and what else? The super chats, the memberships. There's different percentages for every one of those things, but I think like super chat memberships are like 60 or 70% you get, and like 30 or 40% they get. And memberships is like the same, 60 or 70% goes to you. So they take their money. And that's before taxes. So that's the reason why Van Hoot has talked to me, and I already thought this, that I'm going to have to diversify more than just YouTube. But for right now, I'm building up the YouTube portion of this, and then, I can branch off. Don't worry, I'm not saying I'm leaving YouTube, but I will be having to use other platforms because I do have a goal of just doing only this stuff full time. And $100 in 3 months is not going to do that for me. Lisa, were you at the same party as Mark? She might have been. Lisa might have been at the same party as me, and I was Tyrone, and she was, I forgot what name you said. We both gave different names and then went our separate ways and then reconnected randomly on YouTube. No, just talking about going out with prepared alter egos back in the day. A dating site, host a dating episode on this platform. No, I wouldn't do that, but it's an interesting idea. Ignorance is one thing. The question is, but here's my thing. Do you want to give them an opportunity to grow, or do you want to just get rid of them automatically as soon as you hear the statement? That's my only point. My point is not that people should be given unlimited chances. And my point is not that you can just automatically assume that it's ignorance without further evidence and further questioning. But my point is the timing. Are you going to cancel them right away as soon as you hear it? Or are you going to tell them this was an ignorant statement because, and then see what they say from there and do from there, and then decide from there what you're going to do with that person from that time? That's the only point that I ever make. I had someone give the wrong phone number to me before, and then I remember I started, like, once I got the number, I would call that number right away and see if it rang. And there was a couple times when it did not. I was like, I see how it is. I do remember that number. What did they say on that number? I can't remember, but it was some like funny spoof thing that they said on that phone number. You know, white people used to think they could just come up to a black person and start rubbing their hair. No, that's another story. Yeah, that's another story. That's a whole other story. But yeah, and it's not used to. I'll tell you that because I've seen it happen in the last few years. I've still seen that happen. Sometimes it's not ignorance and you just don't know and you haven't done your homework. True. Yeah, it probably is 70-30 for super chats, but either way, what is the 30% that YouTube did to get 30%? It's already a lot that they take 45% for your advertisement money. So on top of that, you get super chats and they get 30% for that. I'm never like, I appreciate YouTube because it has connected me to like thousands of people instantly that I would not have gotten to connect with this easily. I'll say that for sure. But when it comes to the monetization aspects, ooh, it's a shady deal for me. If I meant if I don't agree with a person's or business views, I will choose to not have them in my life, but I won't. Oh yeah, same here. Lisa, I might come back to that comment if I have the opportunity. I think memberships are the same. Well, my point was not even that there's going to be such a more fair deal on another platform. It was just that YouTube, you have to be somebody probably with multi-millions of memberships and subscribers to be able to actually make a living off of just YouTube with that kind of split. So I know that most content creators that say I quit my 9 to 5 to do this don't just stream on one platform. And then also, you can get demonetized on one of the platforms. And then what are you going to do if that's your whole bread and butter? That's just the way that I think generally. I think it depends on what it is about and what is regarding. Just disagreeing is one thing. But if them disagreeing and being wrong and strong is another, reflection is key. Server costs add up, but I totally hear you. They don't add up to that equation. They get a lot of money from sponsors. I've been doing a lot of reading about YouTube. I do think they should have a fund for small creators. Yeah, that would be good. Till you reach a certain size. That would be good. Yeah, so going back to Lisa's comment, where are we here? I'm not even going to mention names because I don't even want to get into the names anymore. But there are people who have off-season things going on in Big Brother that have nothing to do with the show. So people dig up these things that happen with Big Brother, former Big Brother players or whatever. And then they say, if you are following them, you support this or that, whatever that thing happens to be. It's hard to say this without revealing what I'm talking about, but it's just like, this came up, and if you support this person, then it means you also support this thing that is possibly connected to them. And I think that's a tactic, a manipulation tactic that people use to try to make people do things in large numbers as a group. Group think. And I'm not a person of group think. I'm a person who actually has to research the situation and see that person's involvement in that situation before I'm just like, cancel. Do I think some people should be canceled? Yes. But it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. Forcing people to agree with you is not good. And I want to say something else too. Anybody who goes on any reality TV show, especially in 2022, they have a platform and a voice. Yes, we talk about Taylor has like 200,000 plus, and then like a Britney. I don't know how much Britney has 10,000, 15. Somebody might know the number better than me, but she has, let's say one has significantly more than the other. But if Brittany goes on a live, I've been on a few of Brittany's lives. She has several people that she didn't have before. She has a good few hundred people, and she has a blue check. Anybody who goes on the show, even people that we don't like and label them certain ways and think that they're bad, has a following and a platform and a voice. And unfortunately, sometimes people use that platform when they do something that is actually in the wrong, but have a lot of people supporting them. And they'll be like, yo, Wolfpack, jump on these people. Wolfpack, get them. So it's like, you can't even have people are only going to change from those scenarios if they actually want to change, because they will have unlimited amount of people that are actually willing to support whatever behavior it is, even if it's racist, sexist, misogynistic, transphobic, you name it, whatever it is. There's people that are going to be in support of that person and whatever it is they're doing, no matter what that thing is. So I wish that some of these people that get this platform and voice would be a little bit more grounded and a little bit more responsible. Sometimes talk to their fans or their stans and tell them like, hey, enough, you're doing too much. And the other thing is debates where you try to create a hard left and hard right. I know that Tom was talking about politics. Politics can parallel life. Debates where you're trying to force people into a hard left or a hard right, in the middle might be the issues that you're trying to talk about. But instead of actually talking about the issues, we're talking hard about which side that you're on. So sometimes I see somebody that will say something and be like, oh, you support this specific thing. And instead of actually talking about the victim, or instead of actually talking about the actual issue that seems to be at the core of the problem, we're talking about more of which stance and which side that you're on. I remember watching the first presidential debate between Donald Trump and what's his name, Joe Biden. And this was the first year that I actually became a dual citizen and had an opportunity to vote for the president of the free world, the president of the United States of America. And I remember the moderator was getting into the questions, and then Donald Trump was just like, your son's a drug addict, Joe. Your son's a drug addict, Joe. That's why your son's a drug addict. And he's just like, will you shut up, man? And they're just talking over you. And I'm like, yo, there's so many things to discuss of what we need the president of the United States to do. And y'all are here throwing out second grade insults. And then I found those same kind of discussions going on amongst people that I was trying to talk to about things that I think should be going on in our country. And it's like, oh, you're a hard lefter. You're a hard left winger. You extreme liberals. And I'm like, you're not even talking about the issue anymore. You're just talking about the side that you feel that I'm on. Like, it's just, and if I ask you, give me some facts to support me supporting the same person that you are in support of. They don't really have any of those. They just have, didn't you think the moderators, yeah, they just let them go, Donna D. They just let them go. Unfortunately, they just let them go. The middle may also have exactly, because I find that the middle, and Tom was saying this too, I find that the middle is like, I just want what is best for us, the people. They're not like, I'm riding for the Republicans or I'm riding for the Democrats or I'm riding for the independents. It's just like whatever offers us the best of what we're going to get as a people, no matter what side that happens to be on. That's what I'm going for. Let's talk about the policies. Remember that presidential debate. Sometimes I think people want to fight and argue about stupid nonsense. They should just do a push-up competition. I would be worried about the two candidates at that time doing a push-up competition. I was worried about their health in the first place. And I'm going to leave it at that. People on extreme ends of the spectrum often have the same moral backbone. If I love a sports team, I will still admit they played a game. So everything ties in together, Lisa. Like you would think, how does reality TV tie in to politics? But there's extreme fans of people. There is extreme fans of people who are more worried about defending their honor and their name versus actually looking at what they're doing. Like Ben, who was joking with me the other day, I don't remember exactly what he said, but I'll just use another example. Like if your favorite Big Brother player ran over a cat on purpose and was like, I hate cats, so I decided to just run this cat over with my car. There would be people that are like, leave that person alone. Leave that person alone. Everybody runs over cats every day. People run over cats every day, B. Leave them alone. And if you think that it's wrong for them to run over that cat, you're a hater and you don't want to see them succeed at life. And you need to be canceled. And if you don't say it's okay for them to have ran over that cat, they are going to metaphorically jump you and be like, let's cancel Mark because he didn't think that it was okay for Joe Schmo to run over that cat. You can love and support somebody and still think that they're wrong in some instances. The relationship that I have with my grandma, as an example, is like that. Because she thinks I'm wrong about a lot of things. But the thing that I appreciate about my relationship with her is the fact that whether she thinks I'm right or whether she thinks I'm wrong, I know that she's on my side. She just views life a different way than I do. So her opinions on the moves that I should make in life are wildly different. But I don't think that it means she doesn't love me or she hates me or she doesn't want to see me succeed. She just looks at life differently. I wish that we could all understand that as a people. You don't have to unanimously agree. And I've said this to you guys about my channel. Even though there's only a few of you on here right now, each of you have told me things that you think I can do differently about my channel. Each of you have made points, whether it was during the Big Brother season or after. I don't agree with your point, Mark. And I know that you on here support me regardless of that. And I don't want you guys to just be like, I love everything you put out and I love everything you say, because I know that's not true. We're all different people. We all have different life experiences. We all come from different places. We have different families. We have different backgrounds. We're not going to see everything the same way. And if you have a circle around you that is always sipping the Kool-Aid and always telling you that they agree with everything that you do, they're not really your people. Trust me. Let me give you an example. My mom, that's another person, my mom. If I leave the bathroom and I'm about to go out of the house, more so when I was a kid, if I was about to leave the house and I had like toilet paper on my shoe or something, there's that person who would just let you walk out of the house. My mom would be the one who would be like, what are you doing? There's toilet paper on your shoe. Take that toilet paper off. Maybe annoying for me to hear that. Why are you checking for me like that? But at the same time, She's not going to let me look stupid if she sees me beforehand. She's going to tell me you look stupid before I get out there. Whereas I see those legion of fans that sip on the Kool-Aid all day. Oh, the toilet paper look on the shoe? That's the latest fashion trend. You just don't know fashion because you're an idiot and you're not cultured. And then they'll walk around everywhere with the toilet paper, not realizing that most of the world is laughing at them for that. Yeah, I don't need the mob coming after us. They'll come after us. They'll come after me regardless, Van Hoot. There's nothing I can say. There's nothing I can say. It's like they fight and argue harder because they'd be embarrassed to bend even a little bit. It's so much about pride and ego. Yep. And they're like, I'm so committed that I can't admit when I'm wrong. It was the cat's fault. Damn cats. Lisa. My best friends challenge me and make me grow. Me too. Me too. People just don't know how to calmly agree to disagree. It's such a skill. It's a skill that gets me places in life, but it's not a skill that's required to get through life. That's the unfortunate part. Some people are able to get around having to calmly agree to disagree with people. I'm one of the friends who will tell you if there's something in your teeth. And everyone needs those. Just giving them a heads up, they can leave it there if they want. People sometimes want to get the likes and comments when they troll or disagree. Yeah, some people do that intentionally. That's true. I know pages that do that. That's how I am with my friend Lisa. If you have cotton in your hair, I'm going to take it out, etc. Yeah, so anyways, this has been a great discussion, y'all. I have things that I need to do, but I'm glad that I actually stayed on here for an extra 30 to 40 minutes after the interview dropped, just to get your feedback and just to get this conversation going. I do have some more people on deck in the next couple of weeks, which I'm excited about in terms of interviews. I actually have a workout coming up with somebody that I have announced in the membership group, but I probably won't really announce it again before it happens, but y'all are going to see it when it happens and when it drops. And for those of you who are subscribed, I will try my best to get a little bit of behind the scenes coverage for that. And yeah, if you guys have any topic ideas, always feel free to shoot me a message if you have my info. Everyone has my info in some way, shape, or form. And if you don't want to do it that way, you can drop a comment and let me know if there's anything that you would like me to cover. Always open to suggestions. Appreciate all you once again. And I hope that there's a diaper waiting to change. Let me put this up. Whoops. There's a diaper waiting to be changed. Gonna go get that sorted out. Appreciate you guys. Another great combo. I like that you let us know in advance that the interview was pre-recorded. Some content. Yeah, I've actually been on those types of channels, Donna D, where the conversation seems like it's live because they put it on live, but it's an old conversation and the person is not actually there. They just put the thing on and put it on live, probably so they can get super chats and stuff. But nah, I try to be transparent with that. That's why I got on first and said, this is not a live conversation. I know not everybody saw my introduction at the beginning, but I think that I put it in my description as well, that it's not actually live. Even though that's not in the title, I did make sure to tell you guys that it's not a live conversation. And I gave you guys probably an equal amount of time of live as the actual conversation itself, because now we're approaching 2 hours and the conversation was like 52 minutes. So there you go. You got a live and you got a pre-recorded interview. That is sneaky attack. I actually saw a page that went live with a Chappelle interview that I did not know was not live. That was recent. Yeah. But anyways, peace and love, everybody. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Shout out to the replay crew. Drop a comment and let me know what you thought of the interview and the discussion if you happen to watch both. And thank you, Donna D. Donna D said that I'm one of the ethical content creators. So all of you have a great day. And who knows? You never know when I'll pop back on. I'll be on sometime later.